The ship hung on the edge of the stars like a defiant spark against the void, a fragile arc of steel and firelight surrounded by nothing but silence. Commander Elias Cade stood at the observation deck, hands clasped behind his back, watching the pale sphere of a newly charted world drift into view. His face bore the fine lines of a man who had spent half his life in service to exploration, but his eyes still burned with an unyielding curiosity. Humanity had come far since the broken days of planetary wars and collapse. Still, every new step into the unknown carried the weight of old fragilities. Behind him, the hum of the bridge was steady but tense. Lieutenant Vera Onick, sharp-eyed and impatient, monitored the ship's sensors, her fingers darting across controls with restless precision. She was the youngest officer aboard, but also the one who carried an unshaken belief that humanity's destiny was out there, among the stars, waiting to be seized. Beside her, Dr. Maren Elan, linguist and cultural specialist, was already preparing files of hypothetical greetings and symbolic gestures, as though goodwill alone could bridge the abyss between species. The crew was small, tight-knit, but bound together by an unspoken awareness that they were humanity's face on the frontier. "Readings are unusual," Vera reported, her voice low but tinged with a current of unease. "Gravitational distortions ahead. Not natural." Elias narrowed his gaze. "Define unusual. Artificial. Very controlled. Like a net." That word lodged in the commander's chest. A net meant design. Design meant intelligence. The implication sank through the room, drawing silence like a curtain. Humanity had speculated for generations about first contact, had sent probes and messages laced with hope into the black, but to stumble into it uninvited was something else. The distortion rippled across the sensors, then became visible through the viewport, a shape vast enough to blot out starlight. It was not a ship in a human sense, more an engineered continent floating in the dark. Every curve flowing as though carved by purpose and arrogance. Light coursed across its surface like veins of fire, pulsing in patterns no human mind could immediately read. The crew inhaled collectively, their small vessel dwarfed into insignificance. "Are they hailing us?" Elias asked. Maren shook his head, scanning frantic readouts. "No signal. Not one we can recognize, at least. But they know we're here." The silence between their ship and the alien construct became unbearable. Then, without warning, their systems flared with interference. Screens shifted, controls flickered, and a voice, not spoken, not heard, but pressed directly into the mind, spread through the crew. It was cold, perfectly measured, devoid of warmth. "Fragile flame, you do not belong here." Vera staggered, clutching the console. "They're in our heads." The voice pressed again, heavy with disdain. "Your kind wanders too far. Return to your cradle. The void is not yours to claim." Maren's face blanched, yet his scholar's instinct fought through. "This is a negotiation. It's a decree." Elias steadied himself, forcing down the chill of intrusion. "Open a channel. If they can speak, they can listen." But when his words left his mouth, when humanity's first attempt at dialogue crossed the space between, the alien answer was laughter. Not joyous, not mocking, but the hollow sound of superiority, so ingrained it no longer questioned itself. "Your kind scratches at the dark and calls it progress. You mistake survival for strength. You are tolerated only so long as you remain beneath notice." The crew exchanged grim glances. This was not the hopeful contact humanity had dreamed of. It was dismissal, contempt made manifest. Elias felt something stir in his chest, a spark of anger that mirrored the determination which had driven his species through centuries of collapse and rebuilding. He thought of Earth, scarred yet alive, of the millions who still dreamed of the stars. To be told they were unworthy by something that saw itself as a god, it was intolerable. Maren whispered, "They see us as children." "No," Elias said firmly, his voice cutting through the quiet. "They see us as less than children, as insects." He looked back at the looming structure, every fiber as being resisting the weight of alien judgment. And insects can sting. The alien presence pressed harder, a mental weight that made the ship's walls feel narrower. "You will depart. You will carry warning. The stars belong to those who earned them. Defy us, and you will be erased." Something in those words crystallized a moment. It was not just a dismissal. It was a threat, a line drawn with cosmic indifference. Elias could feel the crew waiting, balancing between fear and the spark of something sharper. He straightened, every ounce of his being hardening around a single truth. Humanity had always been underestimated. From the days when first explorers had crossed oceans in fragile ships, to the moments when survivors had rebuilt from ashes, their history was woven with defiance. He leaned closer to calm, his voice low but unwavering. We don't depart when ordered. Not by you. Not by anyone. Vera's eyes widened, shocked tempered with pride. Marin exhaled slowly, as though a gauntlet had been thrown and accepted. The alien presence paused, as though recalibrating. Then came the reply, not words this time, but an image seared into their minds. Earth burning, consumed by fire not of its own making. A warning, a promise. Elias held the vision with teeth clenched, refusing to flinch. He let the silence that followed stretch long, until the weight of his refusal became its own answer. The alien construct loomed, implacable and immense, yet for the first time there was hesitation in its pulsive light. Humanity's defiance had been noted. Whether it would lead to survival or annihilation was still unknown. But one thing was certain. Contact had been made, and the universe had delivered its judgment. Humanity would answer not with retreat, but with resistance. The ship drifted in the shadow of the alien behemoth, its crew bound together by a shared awareness. They had just stepped into a conflict far larger than themselves. The future was uncertain, but the fire that had carried humanity from caves to stars now burned hotter than ever. And as the alien presence withdrew into silence, Elias whispered the only vow that mattered. They will learn who we are. The hum of the ship's engines deepened, steady, alive. The void around them no longer seemed silent. It felt like the hell breath before a storm. The first chapter of humanity's place among the stars had begun, and it would not be written in surrender. This is Section 1, 1,000 words, ending with a strong hook. Humanity's refusal to bow before an advanced alien power. Do you want me to move straight into Section 2, 1,700 words? Next, or would you like me to expand this first section into something closer to the 1,600-word target from your outline? The alien construct shadowed them for hours, a leviathan of silent menace orbiting just beyond reach. The crew spoke little, each one wrapped in a heavy knowledge that the encounter had shifted something fundamental. No longer were they explorers charting stars. They were witnesses to humanity's first challenge from a power immeasurably greater. Commander Elias Cade walked the bridge with measured steps, unwilling to betray the storm of calculations behind his calm exterior. They're watching us, Vera muttered, eyes fixed on the pulsing lights that ran along the alien surface. Her voice carried a mixture of awe and simmering resentment, like we're animals in a pan. Dr. Marin Elin adjusted his console, studying the lingering traces of the mental projection they had endured. His features were pale, drawn tight with worry, but his hands never stopped moving, searching for patterns in the data. They communicate by direct neural imprinting. That's beyond us. They can shape what we see, what we feel. If they wanted, they could crush our minds without firing a single weapon. Elias halted at the viewport, watching the faint outline of Earth in the distance, barely visible among scattered stars. He thought of the image the aliens had forced into their heads, their world aflame, helpless beneath a firestorm of alien judgment. It was more than a threat. It was a reminder of the imbalance they faced. Yet in that imbalance, he felt a stubborn resistance take root. Humanity had been declared unworthy, but history had always proven otherwise. A sudden chime broke the silence. The ship's systems had detected a surge of energy from the alien vessel. Vera's hands flew across her console. They're testing us. Power buildup on their surface. Controlled, focused. Not an attack, but a demonstration. The ship trembled as space itself seemed to ripple. Outside the viewport, a beam of light lanced outward, not at them but at a nearby asteroid. The rock disintegrated instantly, crumbling into dust that spread like smoke in the void. The silence that followed was unbearable, filled only with the hiss of strained machinery. Marin whispered what they were all thinking. They're showing us how easily they could end us. Elias felt every eye on him, waiting for guidance. The alien message was unmistakable: retreat or die. Yet retreat meant more than survival. It meant carrying that fear back to Earth, to all of humanity. It would be the story of frailty told across generations, the legend of a people who dared to step into the stars and were told to kneel. That was a legacy Elias refused to leave behind. "We can't fight them head-on," he said, voice steady. "But power isn't the only measure of strength. We've survived because we adapt, because we see what others overlook." His gaze shifted to Marin. "What weaknesses did you find in their patterns?" The linguist hesitated, then pulled up his readings. Their energy surges are precise, but rigid, structured like language itself. They rely on perfection, on control. If we disrupt that balance, he trailed off, uncertain. Vera caught the thread immediately. "We don't need to overpower them. We just need to prove we can resist." It was reckless, dangerous, but the seed of strategy had taken root. Humanity's first counterstroke would not be brute force. It would be defiance delivered in the only way available to them. Elias gave the order, his voice low but resolute. "Prepare a signal." Not words. Something they don't expect. Within the hour, their ship broadcast a pulse. Chaotic, irregular bursts of energy that mimicked no natural pattern. To human ears, it was noise discordant and jarring. But to a species built on precision and control, it was something else entirely. The alien lights faltered, their steady pulse breaking into uneven flickers. The crew exchanged glances of astonishment. "They weren't prepared for disorder," Marin said, almost breathless. "They can invade minds, but they don't understand improvisation." The alien response came swiftly. A mental wave pressed into them, heavier than before, thick with fury. "You play at resistance. You are dust given form. Do not mistake insolence for power." Elias clenched his jaw. The weight of the alien mind pressed against him like a storm tide, but he forced himself to remain standing. "We don't mistake anything," he said aloud, knowing they would hear. "We've survived by making something out of nothing. You'll learn that." The pressure receded, but not entirely. The lights of the alien structure burned brighter, their patterns sharper, as though recalibrating for something greater. The demonstration of destruction had been a warning. The next response would not be symbolic. "Commander," Vera said quietly, her eyes flicking across her readings, "they're preparing another strike. This time, I don't think it's just a show." Elias considered the crew around him. Fear was written on their faces, but beneath it was a harder glint. A refusal to collapse, a shared understanding that history will remember this moment, one way or another. He drew a breath, knowing the choice ahead was inevitable. "Then we prepare, too," he said. "If they want to see what humans are made of, we'll show them." The ship turned, engines flaring against the pull of the alien presence. Every system hummed under strain, the vessel small and fragile against the immensity of what it faced. Yet in that fragility lay something unbreakable. Humanity could be crushed, but it would not kneel. As the alien lights shifted, preparing their response, the crew braced themselves. For the first time, the clash between species no longer felt like an encounter. It felt like the opening move of a war neither side had sought, but both would now be bound to fight. Elias's hand tightened on the railing as the hum of the alien weaponry filled the void like the growl of a distant storm. He felt the pulse of fear in his chest, but above it burned the fiercer flame of defiance. Whatever came next would test him beyond measure, but he knew with absolute certainty that they would not face it as prey. The alien power swelled, the ship shuddered, and the stars themselves seemed to hold their breath. And then the first strike began. This is Section 2, 1,000 words, escalating the conflict, showing alien superiority, and ending on a suspenseful cliffhanger as the first true attack looms. Do you want me to continue directly with Section 3 in the same style, or pause here, so you can review both sections together? The first strike came not as a weapon of fire, but as a ripple through space itself, a distortion that bent metal, strained circuits, and clawed at the edges of human thought. The ship convulsed under the alien force, groaning like a living thing pushed past endurance. Alarms screamed, lights flickered, and in that chaos Elias Cade stood at the center of the bridge, every muscle taut with a demand for action. "Shields are collapsing," Vera shouted, her voice cutting through cacophony. Sparks erupted across her console as she wrestled control from failing systems. They're tearing us apart without touching us. Marin hunched over his station, face pale but eyes intent, parsing the structure of the assault. It's patterned, like the mental projections, but amplified. They're using order as a weapon. Elias's mind snapped to clarity. Where the aliens relied on perfection, humans had always thrived in chaos. Then we give them what they can't process. Break the rhythm. Introduce noise. The order traveled across the bridge like a spark catching tinder. Vera's hands flew, rerouting power, disrupting the ship's own systems in a calculated frenzy. Engines pulsed irregularly. Gamma rays spat out nonsense bursts. The ship's very heartbeat twisted into discord. The result was brutal. Machinery protested, warning lights painted the bridge in crimson, but against the alien tide there was resistance. The crushing weight eased, not entirely, but enough for the crew to breathe again. Marin exhaled sharply, sweat streaking his brow. They don't understand unpredictability. They expect harmony. We're dissonance. The reprieve was short-lived. The alien construct flared with renewed intensity, its vast body shifting like a predator adapting to prey's defiance. Beams of energy lanced out, deliberate this time, aimed to destroy. One missed by mere kilometers, its aftershock rattling the hull so violently the crew staggered to the deck. "We won't survive a second hit," Vera warned, her voice raw. Elias forced himself upright, his chest tight but his will unshaken. He thought of Earth, its cities, its oceans, its fragile peace, and knew that retreat would only delay annihilation. If humanity was to have a future, it had to be one here, in this crucible. "We make them see us," he said, steady, every word carrying the weight of command. "Not as insects, not as children, as equals." Marin hesitated, then looked up with something like fire in his eyes. "I have an idea. Dangerous, reckless, but it might work." "Explain," Elias demanded. "They use thought as a weapon. We can turn that back on them. If I link our neural interfaces, I can broadcast something they won't expect. Not fear, not submission, but memory. Our history, our defiance carved into their minds." The risk was staggering. A miscalculation could fry their nervous systems, leave them husks. But in Marin's proposal was the essence of humanity's edge, the willingness to gamble everything for a chance at survival. Elias met his eyes and gave a single nod. "Do it." The crew worked in fevered silence, connecting their neural links, weaving human thought into a crude but potent weapon. Elias felt the cold press of the interface at his temple, a pulse that tied his mind to the others. In that instant, barriers dissolved. He felt Vera's fierce determination, Marin's blend of fear and brilliance, the unyielding resolve of every soul aboard. "Broadcast," Elias commanded. The surge was immediate. Across the void, the alien construct flickered as human thought poured into its vast network. Not ordered, not perfect, but raw. Images of fire-wrought cities rebuilt from rubble, of explorers crossing oceans with nothing but faith in the stars, of defiance in the face of tyrants who believed themselves eternal. Humanity's failures bled into triumphs, a tapestry of chaos and resilience. The alien mind recoiled. Its structured patterns faltered, its light spasmed in irregular bursts. For the first time, the presence that had pressed against him with cold certainty wavered. A mental echo reverberated back, laced with something alien yet unmistakable. Confusion. Elias clenched his fists, pressing harder, forcing every memory of struggle and survival into the link. "This is who we are," he growled. "We don't bow. We endure. We rise." The alien response was a blast of power, but it lacked the precision of before. The ship shook, but it held. The crew, united by the neural bond, pressed forward, their shared defiance overwhelming the ordered tide. Marin gasped, voice trembling. "They can't comprehend us. We're not what they thought." Then came silence. The alien lights dimmed, the weight lifted, and the vast structure drifted back, its presence no longer pressing into their minds. The crew sagged in their seats, drained but alive. Elias stood slowly, his chest aching with exhaustion, but his spirit burning fierce. He knew this was no victory in the conventional sense. They had not destroyed their foe. only forced acknowledgement. Yet in that acknowledgement lay a seed of change. "They'll come again," Vera said softly, her eyes still locked on the alien silhouette receding into the stars. "Yes," Elias agreed, his gaze steady. "But next time, they'll remember. They'll know we're not insects to be brushed aside." He let the silence stretch, the crew absorbing the weight of what had passed. Their survival was fragile, their future uncertain. But for the first time since contact, humanity had left a mark on the vastness of the cosmos. Marin leaned back, exhausted but resolute. "We've declared ourselves. Whatever comes, the galaxy knows we exist." Elias turned toward the viewport, the stars stretching endless before them. His voice was quiet, but carried the strength of a vow. "And they'll learn what it means to face us." The ship drifted onward, battered but unbroken, carrying within it the defiance of an entire species. Somewhere in the dark, an empire of perfection had been forced to confront imperfection, and had faltered. Humanity's place among the stars was still contested, but one truth had been written in fire and memory. They would not be dismissed again. And as the alien construct vanished into shadow, the crew prepared for what was to come, knowing the storm was only beginning. This is Section 3, 1,000 words, bringing the conflict to a climax where humanity turns alien strength against them, survives through unity and defiance, and ends on a powerful note that promises continuation. Would you like me to now combine all 3 sections into one continuous 3,000-word narrative, so it reads seamlessly as a story, or keep them as distinct parts for expansion toward your 5,000-word target? The silence after the alien withdrawal was heavier than the battle itself. Systems sputtered, lights dimmed, and the bridge crew sat in the half-dark like survivors clinging to the wreckage of a storm. Elias Cade remained standing at the viewport, shoulders square though his legs trembled beneath him. Beyond the fractured hull, the stars glittered indifferently, the alien construct now a faint silhouette retreating into the void. The ship was alive, though barely, and so was its crew. That was victory enough for the moment. "Engines are unstable," Vera reported, voice hoarse, her hands moving over broken controls. She was pale, sweat streaking through soot on her cheeks, but the fire in her eyes hadn't dimmed. "We got maybe 30% thrust. No jump capacity." Marin pulled the neural interface from his temple with a hiss of pain. His face was drawn, as if the weight of all humanity's memories had been pressed into him and left scars. "If they come back, we can't hold them off again. Not like this." Elias turned, reading the exhaustion and fear on their faces. Yet beneath it was something stronger, an unspoken unity forged in the crucible of survival. "Then we don't wait for them to come back. We prepare, and we make sure the message of what happened here reaches Earth." The words steadied the crew. Survival wasn't just escape. It was testimony. The galaxy had tried to erase them, and their refusal to vanish had to be known. The ship limped into the shadow of a nearby moon, its battered hull groaning as it sought cover. Systems flickered, the lights of civilization replaced by makeshift repairs and jury-rigged circuits. In the cramped engineering bay, the crew worked side by side, sparks raining like fireflies as they patched hull breaches and rerouted power. Every hand was needed, every skill tested. Vera paused only once, wiping grime from her brow. "You realize, Commander, we're making ourselves a beacon. They'll know we're still alive." "Good," Elias replied without hesitation. "Let them know. The worst mistake they can make is thinking we'll stay quiet." Marin looked up from a tangle of wiring, his eyes shadowed but sharp. "They underestimated us once. They won't do it again. Next time, they'll come harder." Elias nodded. "Then we'll be ready." The repairs stretched long into the cycle, each task performed with the quiet intensity of people who understood the stakes. Exhaustion gnawed at them, but so did determination. In the rare pauses, their conversations turned inward, probing the enormity of what had transpired. "They don't see us as life," Marin murmured, almost to himself as he reviewed his notes. "Not in the way we define it. To them, life is order, perfection, structure. We're the opposite. To them, we're noise, disruption. And that's why they'll never understand us," Vera said, tightening a bolt with a harsh twist. "You can't predict noise. You can't control it. Elias listened, silent, but every word reinforced the truth he had carried since the encounter. Their survival was not a fluke, but a statement. Humanity's chaos was its weapon. By the time the ship's systems hummed with tenuous stability, the crew was ragged but resolute. Elias gathered them on the bridge, the viewport framed with the cold light of distant stars. He let the silence settle before he spoke. We've seen what they are. We've seen what they believe we are. And we've shown them they're wrong. His voice was steady, carrying the gravity of command. But this isn't over. What happened here will echo. They will come again, and others will follow. We stand now at the edge of something greater than any of us imagined. Vera straightened, fatigue giving way to steel. So what's our next move? Elias met her gaze, then looked to Marin, and finally to the entire crew. We return. We tell our people everything. We prepare them for what's coming. The stars are not empty. They're filled with those who would dismiss us, control us, erase us. But now they know we won't be erased. We'll turn their judgment into our fire. The words hung in the air, heavy yet electrifying. For a moment, each of them could see it. A humanity united not by fear, but by defiance. The ship shifted, engines whining as they prepared for the long journey back. The alien construct remained a shadow in the distance, a reminder of what had been faced and what would surely return. Elias watched it fade from view, his jaw set, his heart steady. The fear was still there, but fear was no longer the master. It was fuel. As the ship drifted into the quiet lanes of space, Marin's voice broke the silence. Do you think they respect us now? Elias didn't look away from the stars. Respect isn't given. It's taken. And when the time comes, we'll take it. The crew fell silent, each lost in thought, each carrying the weight of what had passed. Yet beneath that weight, there was something new, something fierce. Humanity had faced the abyss, and the abyss had blinked. The journey home stretched before them, uncertain and fraught. But Elias knew this was no ending. It was a beginning written in fire, noise, and defiance. The galaxy would come to know them, not as fragile sparks to be snuffed out, but as a firestorm rising from the dark. And though the alien presence had retreated, Elias felt its shadow still lingering, patient and calculating. The storm had only begun, and humanity's role within it was yet to be written. But as long as his crew drew breath, as long as Earth still turned beneath the stars, that role would not be one of submission. It would be one of defiance. This is Section 4, 1,000 words, shifting from immediate survival to aftermath. The crew repairs, reflects, and commits to returning home with their defiant message, while setting the stage for a larger, inevitable conflict. Would you like me to expand this into a continuing saga, Section 5 onward, or keep this as a concluding arc of the first story?